we good? 8:30, I call this meeting of the Riley County Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good Thursday morning, everybody. Hope everybody's trying to stay dry and maybe more importantly, warm this morning. Mother Nature showing her true colors. I'm for sure if you're used to winters yet, Amanda, or not. Is this your first one?
Well, first one obviously in Kansas.
Yeah.
But it's snow back in Washington, so it's just not ice. So.
You guys can have all that and the rain too during the spring and the summer. It's all good. Okay. So let's start off with some public comments this morning as usual. I see John is up there.
Yes, sir. I don't have any numbers for you yet for sewer, but snow removal. I'm sorry. Where the guys went out again this morning to clean up some intersections and that. So I for sure will have something for you on Monday.
Sounds good. I have to admit it was rather slick out yesterday. The 5:30 in the morning range going to work. I think the couple of days of rain and mixed precipitation and snow and temperature caught up with us.
Yeah, that sure doesn't help the rain first.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. I'll look forward to that discussion on Monday morning. I don't see anybody else up on Zoom, so we will move to public comment here. Anybody? No? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and move on to commission comments. Commissioner McKinley.
Well, I had a different experience Tuesday evening. For the first time in 10 years, I attended a Riley City Council meeting as a visitor. I updated them on a few things we're doing and on that Senate Bill 13 about what that's going to do to budget.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't seen that. So I was kind of, and I only received minor harassment from the council.
You haven't been here long enough yet. Just wait. Yeah. Just wait.
But other than that, just ready to watch the Chiefs in the World Series this weekend.
Super Bowl.
World Series.
Oh, okay.
That's a different.
Well, actually, it's next weekend, but I hate to.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I got the wrong.
You can watch the Pro Bowl this weekend.
Oh.
It's yeah. Yeah.
Well, I didn't think.
I think it's just families only or something. It's that. Yeah. I don't know how they devise teams or whatnot, but yeah. So okay.
That's it.
All you got? Okay. Commissioner Foki.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to say that I've got some positive comments on our decision not to put the parking space over in Aggieville, not to do that. So that was, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
That motion. But let's see, I finished up my orientation packet
Yes.
this week, and I'm going to go back and redo some of it and listen to it again.
Good.
So I think it's a good resource.
Just out of curiosity, did they make any indications that they're going to make any of those presentations hard copy? Or they're just going to keep them up virtually?
They've given us copies of the pictures they show.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I think the word is.
There's a couple of those presentations, I just say that, like the Public Works presentation that, the hardbound copies and stuff they made is a real useful guide on certain things that you could always come back to later.
Oh.
But I guess you could do the same virtually. I mean, it's really not really that much
Yeah,
of a
it's all
difference.
they
So
say.
I'm a little old school sometimes.
I
I'm
know,
going
I'd
just
like
a
to see
specific
it.
item. I don't want to get on the computer and go through 5 minutes of undertows to get to one set of information.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I did notice, I was over at West Loop. I had a good meeting with Ed Clemak, but we talked about the West Loop Business Association. I think that's a good contact to him and good to get in touch with.
Yeah, he actually contacted me too. We're going to try to meet on February 4th. As you know, he was a former Manhattan City Commissioner and Mayor. Maybe I won't mention when. I guess it was early 2000s, if I remember right. It's been a little while. So.
And as I was there, we were talking about the the HEA bus stop over West Loop, which is great, but it was a nasty day, and I felt really bad because people were sitting out there in the rain and the snow, so we may have to, I'm meeting with the HEA board next week, so we'll see if we can work on something to get a shelter over there, you know.
I know they had at one point in time discussions with the MPO on putting a kind of movable, transferable, kind of like a fiberglass type of thing. It wasn't really overly expensive that you could just basically put in place, but some of those don't have a solid enough base to be able to establish them. So I don't know where that conversation went, but
Well, especially when it's windy and it's really nasty,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
yeah, especially this time.
Held
of year.
down.
Yeah. No, it looked like it was pretty thick. It looks like it was about half-inch thick fiberglass. And it looked like it was the framework on it was pretty good. But the problem with it is having a place to actually fasten it down to. You can't necessarily fasten it down. A lot of those stops in town are on those kind of sewer bases. They were concrete. You can't actually fasten them down to that. So.
Right, but the one over West Loop is really well used. I mean, there's always people there, so I think it's something that we need to address in the future, so maybe next year.
Okay.
Other than that, that's about it for those kinds of comments.
Well, as for me, busy week as usual. One of our paint lines kind of went down at work, so we've been kind of scrambling to figure out what to do. Trying to take a little bit of time off, but we're going to have to make up for it here pretty fast. And it's going to be panic, rush, but nothing we're not used to. So for me, Monday, I guess I started off by moderating the first intergovernmental meeting of the year. Of course, we'll be hosting those this year. I thought all the way around that went good. Appreciated the presentations by Julie and Katie from MBAF. Good to see that even with the COVID, they've got a timeline still in place and still trying to structurally get things going. I heard too that some biotech company is actually going to use part of their early research on COVID to help develop whatever their model is going to be for a vaccine. So there's already things happening there for greater common good. So definitely good to hear that. And it seemed like everybody is doing good during these challenging times. We didn't meet obviously in December with this particular meeting, so it was right before Thanksgiving. So lots probably happened over the holidays and the early part of the year for everybody. Monday afternoon as well, I had our regular community leader Zoom call. Once again, that's with local officials to discuss said pandemic. Had a detailed conversation on local and regional vaccination efforts. Tried to refine a plan on where to move some of those efforts to. Thankful to say that with some work and some effort, we got Potroff Hall for the longer term, and I think it's going to be a better setup than where it was. And they've used that as a testing site, so they kind of have a model on which to work from. And when it gets a little bit warmer out, they can incorporate the series of barns into that equation and probably make it work very efficiently and effectively as we get to the larger populations through this process. So that was good to hear. Tuesday morning, I had the opportunity to sit on the Leadership Manhattan Local Government Elected Officials panel. That's a long word too. That was hosted by the Chamber. We had some really good dialogue and questions, and it was about an hour long, and appreciated the opportunity to be able to sit on that and represent Riley County. And I noticed through the bio that we have a really good, diverse group of local leaders that are on that particular I guess leadership panel, whatever you want to call it. So that's always good to see as well. Tuesday afternoon via Zoom, did the monthly meeting for the Board of Directors for Pawnee Mental Health. I'm the alternate for Riley County on that. We got a position on Riley County that we need to, I think, get filled as well. Got some of our standard updates on financials, operations, what's going on with crisis stabilization, and had to introduce a new group of board members from around the 10-county region. I think there was 3 or 4 of them. 4 of them, I think, total. One wasn't on the call. There was 3 that were. That's what it was. I'm going to go back 2 days ago. It's a struggle sometimes. And also Tuesday evening, I met with Gary Fike, our director of Riley County Extension, and as well as John Mott, who's a former Manhattan City Commissioner, on idea on possible structure and network for a rural economic development committee. Something that would, I think, really, really greatly benefit some of our smaller communities in the rural areas. We try to work forward through some of the challenges that we face. Some good dialogue and ideas moving forward. They're going to work together to establish a network, and then I'll have them come back at some point in time and give us a full presentation and see how we want to adjust to that. And I did talk to Rich this morning about how we could adapt that as a Riley County type of committee. So that'll be on the horizon at some point in time. Probably not right away. So other than that, just trying to stay warm and get through the rest of January. So if there's nothing further, we'll go ahead and move on to some business this morning.
First item, Commissioners, purchase authorization for replacement vehicle and bed cover in the amount of $25,000 for planning development funded by CIP. Need a motion.
Hang- My computer is. There it is.
And that was the one that Amanda had given us a presentation
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
replacing a vehicle that's no longer applicable for what it's being used for.
So this is the actual purchase of it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would make a motion to approve that.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any further discussions or questions on the subject? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All three, please. Lower right-hand side.
Oh.
Thanks, Amanda.
Do you have an extra pen?
I do.
I didn't bring it. I need to throw a few in here. I forgot.
All my pins right now in here are courtesy of the clerk's department.
Yeah, I've got several of those too.
Those are actually good pens. A lot of
They
people
really are.
like those.
Uh-huh.
They're
I like-
ergonomic and got lots of ink, and they just flow right on paper.
John, how long were you here before they let you have one of those Clerk pens?
Huh?
How long were you here before they let you have one of those Clerk?
August.
It's the first time we got one. So that's right when we got them. All due to COVID.
Yeah. That's a silver lining, technically and literally.
Next, Commissioners need a motion to review and sign appraisers real estate and sales data service agreement and contractual provisions for Kelsey Adams of Prestige Realty.
Did we not do this a month or so ago? Didn't we approve this before?
You have to do
You're
a
gonna-
bunch
yeah,
different-
you
a
have
bunch
to-
different realtors.
Yeah, during the subcontract.
Different company.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was the same company.
I think it was the same company, but it was somebody else for a different thing there. Some of them we do on a yearly basis. Some of them we have to do quite frequently, monthly.
And they may have multiple offices too. This
Yeah.
office is in Junction City.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So,
all right.
I get a motion.
Move to approve, review and sign the appraiser's real estate sales data search service agreement and contractual provisions for Kelsey Adams of Prestige Realty.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
2 spots, please.
Let me get to the first one first before the second.
Do we have batteries somewhere? This just died.
Do you know what size it takes?
I've got a couple in my office.
I'll just get them. I can do one.
Should come.
Should be double A's, aren't they?
They are. I was gonna see in my desk if I have a couple. Let me check.
Okay.
If not, I got a couple in my
I
office
know we
too.
have some in our office. But,
Okay.
if they're good, I did find one nice quoted AAA.
Work.
Not
Working?
working?
There you go.
You can just hand them to him, Cindy, on those. It's
Oh,
not
no,
working.
but we.
No,
we will
I got it working.
Oh, it's working now?
Yeah.
Okay. There is a phone list in larger font for each
Oh,
of you
good.
also.
Okay, yeah, that other
That's a
phone.
little better. Thank you.
Next, Raleigh County Personnel Action Forms, Savannah Thamer, Sunflower Grant Intern Health Department Separation Service, Dan Parcel, COVID-19 Contract Tracer, Separation Service, Brooke Jader, COVID-19 Contract Tracer Separation Service, James House, New Hire Public Works Operator 1. All three sign, please.
Just out of curiosity, will we be rehiring those contact tracers, or do you know? Yes, okay. So they're just moving on.
As we've been moving, different things like.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, as we've been replacing those.
Okay, okay. I just can't see that we're not gonna have a need for that.
Yeah, and the
Over there.
position is basically an evergreen position, it stays open,
Sure.
it's really what's out of everyone.
Here's
Okay.
one.
So John has a side with that, I guess, with the contact tracers, I really want to mention they are temporary employees.
Yeah.
But it's temporary employees.
Sure.
And generally those are for a specific period of time.
Yeah.
We basically say, okay, they're for a specific project, we can either do a time on project, which is contact tracing, but once they're, if any of them are employed for a year or more, then we need to just reevaluate.
Okay. I didn't know if you had the time frame and then you had to restart over or something, because this is also not ad valorem, this is grant funded, so.
Right, yeah, well, yeah, the position itself, from what I understand, was created to respond to this project need. So
Okay.
as long as that continues, we just have to recreate it. And then each person, we just need to evaluate their total hours.
Okay, gotcha.
If I can date all those.
Yeah, I'll send them back to you. That's $5 per lost date on that one, by the way.
I caught it before we were done. That
No.
doesn't count.
Once you pass them along, it's a done deal. It don't work that way.
Man,
Well, then, so then,
Oh.
Yeah, I
that
got one too.
backfired.
Oh, no, actually, I put it on, no, I didn't. Well, I guess I gotta put $5 in the pot too. It happens.
Did you just swap $5? Does that work?
Well, that just takes $10 out of the total amount, but you know, it's your steak dinner, not mine.
thanks, Elizabeth, appreciate it.
Thanks for that clarification too. Appreciate it.
Now I need a motion to approve accounts payable and payroll, and then when the forms are done.
I got them. She dropped them
Oh,
off to
she
me.
got it?
Yeah.
Okay, I saw Cindy carrying something. So if I can get a motion to approve accounts payable and payroll.
move to approve accounts payable and payroll.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm sure there's no discussion on that, so we'll just go ahead and say all those in favor.
All right.
Aye. I have them in front of me here, so we'll just kind of do it in reverse.
Thank you. from the board is?
Let me know when you're ready and we'll
Yep.
go ahead and get started.
I got them.
Good to go? Okay. We'll start off with page one. As I mentioned, if you have anything to chime in with, just go ahead and chime in on that actual page. Start with page one. Page two. Page three. Page four. Page five. Page six. Page seven. Page eight.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of January 25th, 2021.
No second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
How the tentative agendas look, commissioners?
Good. We don't have anything to add on any one of next week's press conferences as well.
Any of the commissioners have anything for next week's press conference? Okay. Next, we have Barry Wilkerson, 9. There's a break here.
I have a email from NACO from our steering committee. I'm going to send it over to you so you can send it over to them if they want. There is a, well, let me get to it here so I can explain it maybe a little better. There is an afternoon call that you can register for. There'll be some senior Biden administration officials talking about the America Rescue Plan. I guess the new administration's COVID-19 related plan. I don't know if you're interested in that, but if you are, I'm going to send everything over to him. I can't send it to you, obviously, so I'll send it over to Rich and he can forward it over to you. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern, so I guess that'd be 3 o'clock here. I registered. I'm going to try to do it, but we'll see.
Yeah, talking about registrations, I have continued to get calls and text messages about people registering for the vaccine and then they
Yeah.
don't know, they
Yeah.
never hear. So I don't know if there's a way that we can ask
There,
them to do
yeah,
some kind of a yes, confirm.
yeah.
Oh,
We're working on that, so there's not gonna be an email, there's not an opportunity to send a confirmation email. The screen that comes up is your confirmation. And there is a screen, I'm actually working on language, I just wrote that down. To put something out on Facebook and social media to let people know you do not get a confirmation email. It'll just be a screen that says you are confirmed, or your registration is confirmed. But I've been answering a lot of emails, also going through the list, yes, you're confirmed, yes, we'll get to you. But I'm working on messaging on that because that's a misconception.
yeah, and if we could get some talking points, with the commission as far as what's going on with the COVID and the vaccinations. 'Cause
Julie does that every Monday morning.
yeah, well, I didn't hear about that we changed the venue until
Yeah.
the news last night, and it would have been nice to know ahead of time.
Okay.
So I know Rich and I talked about it on Tuesday, but,
Catherine, you should be, okay, you're on the press release distribution list, correct? You're not, okay, let me get you on there.
I got it. Yeah, I'm not for sure on that one.
yeah, because I
They
check
could,
my emails all the
just so
time.
I clarify, we still have the telephone number or no?
Yes, we have two
The
telephone
65,
numbers.
60?
We
Okay.
also have 2 email addresses that people can email us with questions. However, we are inundated with
Yeah.
phone calls and emails, so we're
Yeah.
trying to get through all of that as quickly as we can, and call people back as quickly as we can and email them and do all of that.
Alex,
Well,
could you send that email addresses and phone numbers to the commissioners? That way, if they have people that have questions, at least they can give them that directly in that manner.
Right. Yeah,
In
just,
case they don't have the answer. that way.
yeah, just to know what's going on there
Yeah.
on a daily basis would be really good.
Thank you.
Are you available to chat after the meeting potentially,
Right
Alex?
after
Okay.
Catherine.
That's
I'm
fine.
Definitely able to, as long as the, clinic goes smoothly, this is where.
Understandable.
They have to run over there, but fingers crossed I do.
As long as no other fire comes up in between.
So, yeah, probably not.
Oh, come on now, let's be optimistic.
Our weeks have gone,
Oh, yes.
days have gone.
And I made a copy of 22 already, Clancy.
Did you?
Yeah, so you don't,
Yeah, I was.
like I told you, I tried to read through that and it put me to sleep the other night, so I have my antidote now.
Yes, sir.
I bet you can print that one.
No.
We don't have a document.
Yeah, that one's on income tax. Is that the one? Clancy?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not worth reading.
It actually is
I
worth
mean,
reading,
as far
but
as the county,
Yeah.
you know, providing input.
it's another, in my opinion, bad tax policy and a whole litany of bad tax policies.
And they wonder why we have such trouble.
Right.
I will add that while we have been, I'm sure you all hear complaints about the clinic, we've also gotten lots of compliments about the clinic. You know, people that are very
Mhm.
happy, said it went smoothly. Tuesday's event went super smooth. We didn't have as many people show up as we had invited to come, but I think the weather kept some of them away. But it went very smoothly. We were still in Manhattan Fire Department while we were working out the details with
Yeah.
Cedar Park. But it went very smoothly and we were able to get in some of our elderly, severe, like our older, much older population. We had a 101-year-old come through. We also had a 91-year-old come through, who is now my best friend. But so
Can never have enough of those.
so if we're dealing with, you know, all the issues, it's heartwarming to see these, you know, this very vulnerable population get vaccinated. And so
Well,
that's nice.
I do think on this, we have to have a little level of understanding and patience. We've never attempted this before. There's not a blueprint or a foundation in which to work from. So we're really starting from scratch. And there's some places that are really, really struggling with this. There's some places that maybe better adapt for whatever particular reason. But I am fully in faith and confidence that we'll get everything adjusted, much like testing, and it'll run smoothly, and we'll be good through this process.
The biggest thing is just dealing with all this data.
Yeah.
You know, and just how to manage it and how to make sure we have, you know, we're getting the people that are in the appropriate phases notified, that the notifications are proper. And so we're rolling out a new scheduling system, hopefully next week, in which people will sign up for a specific time slot. So we'll say, okay, you're eligible to receive your vaccine now. Please go on to Civics Plus and you can pick an appointment time. So that way we're, you know, people can pick the day, and can pick a, like, I think it's a 20-minute time slot to get their vaccine. So that way you don't run into people
Sure.
saying, well, I've got to work, or well, I've got a doctor's appointment then, and stuff like that. So we're hoping, there will probably be some hiccups with that, but, you know, we're hoping to get ahead of that so that those hiccups are minimal.
I think maybe Catherine's right. Maybe we do need, maybe not forever, but maybe in the next month or 6 weeks, maybe a per commission meeting update, whether it's from you or Julie or whomever, just on the vaccination process itself.
And
She
I'm
usually
happy to
gives
do
us
that.
numbers and a few other things that are going on, but if we could maybe consistently get that, that may help.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And I'll just so that way I can keep, Julie can stay out of the clinic in doing that.
Okay.
I've been in the meetings also, and if it's
Sure.
like I don't know, I'll ask and find out.
I'm staying pretty well updated myself, but I'm kind of engaged in some other Zooms, as you're aware of. So, but that would be for just the general public to have another opportunity
Yeah, no,
to
definitely.
keep caught up. Okay.
No, happy to do that. And also the same strain being new to this area. If there's any other media outlets that you think we should reach out to, or any other senior centers we should go to, or any other way to get the message out about registering and the process, please let me know, because I know not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's, you know, listening to KN or reading the paper or watching the news. So I want to make sure we get all of those people. So if you have any ideas, I know I'm going to reach out to the paper up in your neck of the woods, Greg. But if there's anything else, and I'm happy to go talk at senior centers or whatever, just to make sure we're getting everybody.
Sounds good. Good morning, Barry.
Morning.
Morning, Whitney. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
I hope it stays that way too.
Yeah. Amen to that.
We do what we can. Got cool out there. Good.
Of course, Rich is saying that with a little bit of happiness in his voice, if you noticed.
I need to be present.
Yeah, there you go. All right, it is 9 a.m. Barry.
I think a lot of you maybe know that we recently, Kathy Carpenter retired from our office after close to 26 years as the office manager. And I was very fortunate to be able to hire an internal candidate, Whitney Phoebus, who was with me this morning. She actually began on December 28th in our office and is certainly learning on the fly and picking things up quickly, but she's familiar to everyone. She worked in another office in the county at one time, Mr. Vargo, but
I still think we're trying to fill in the dominoes from that, aren't we?
I got them all filled.
You got them all
I
filled.
got them all filled.
But no, we're really excited to have Ms. Phoebus in our office with her educational background, her background in accounting. She is an asset to our office and will continue to be for many years. So
You soaking all that in, Whitney?
Slowly but surely.
she's a fast learner, so I knew she would be. But I just wanted to, I know Commissioner Folke and McKinley are new, and obviously welcome to Raleigh County. And I look forward to working with both of you along with Commissioner Ford for the next several years. So, and my door is always open. And
Glad you mentioned that. I need to make my way over there.
all right. So, yeah, please, if you have any questions, and otherwise, I don't have any other announcements at this time. But looking forward to the new year and getting some things moved through the system. So, as everybody knows, we've been on a struggle because of some of the delays and everything else, but trying to try cases. But I think that's about to come to an end, and we can break some things loose.
Are you still doing some cases over at the old theater on South Charles?
We're trying to do trials over there. We had one ready to go 2 weeks ago, and the defendant was COVID, so they had to postpone that one. It's just,
You can't write a movie script any better. You just can't.
no, I think though, as the vaccinations, people will get vaccinated and this starts to, we will eventually get things moving. And they have done some in some other jurisdictions, but I'm confident we can do it here. Any
Okay.
questions?
You want me to shoot you an email and find a time we can sit down and chat?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll do. Okay.
And, so I need to get back with you, Commissioner Folke,
Okay.
so I'll do that. I'll send you an email. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Keep
much.
up the good work.
Have a good day. Next, Commissioners, we have plans at 9:15.
Just so you're aware, Barry, you long conversation about
When are the next vaccinations?
Today, tomorrow, and then Tuesday, and I don't know what other days. Of course, all that's contingent on whether we get the vaccines. The vaccines come in. We're already starting those booster shots for the healthcare workers. So that'll be good still get that full immunity.
That's one question I had. Is that basically the same vaccine or is it a different vaccine than the first one? Do
I
you
think it's
know?
the same vaccine,
Okay.
but it throws everybody for a bit of a loop. So.
Yeah, I know one in particular that really
Yeah.
threw him for a loop.
So we're trying to schedule, the plan is to try to schedule those boosters for Fridays, Thursdays or Fridays. So not many people have a day or two to recover.
That's
So we're
smart.
not doing it in the middle of the week and people are having to take a day off. But yeah, so
Now, do people have to sign up again on boosters, or do you automatically do that?
we'll automatically contact them for those booster shots. They will have to fill out the paperwork again, so those 2 sheets of paper that you filled out, just no way for tracking purposes, but we'll contact them. And you get that second booster 28 days after the first one. You cannot get it
28.
sooner, but you
Oh,
can get it later. You can get it outside of that 4-day window. Because I know some people are traveling or, they have whatever else going on. It's okay to get it outside of that 4-day window, just not before that 4-day window.
My youngest daughter's in nursing school at Washburn. Yesterday, she got to spend 6 hours giving vaccinations. She
Oh,
was so
wow.
excited to give vaccinations. I'm not sure on that 6th hour if she was still excited, but she got to give COVID-19 vaccinations for 6 hours yesterday.
Do we have a nursing, does K-State have a nursing program?
MHEC does,
Okay.
Manhattan Area Technical College does.
So I was gonna ask you if there's enough people to give vaccines.
So that is a challenge for us. And I think just personnel wise, that's a challenge to have people, taking paperwork and dealing with parking and all of that right now. And also volunteers. So we're trying to kind of get that all up and running because we do want to have some clinics up in the northern part of the county. And that is the plan. But if maybe we reach out to those students, because I think giving a vaccine is not, too difficult. I wouldn't want to do it, but, I don't think it doesn't require it. It's like needles, so.
It's not hard to do.
But the utmost respect for those ladies, man. I don't know how they.
Staffing and finding personnel throughout this entire process has been a real, it's not that we don't already have enough, it's just trying to find those extras that we need to accomplish it. It's been really difficult. So.
Yeah, I was surprised her as a nursing student was able to, but evidently the community reached out, they need more personnel, and they got a great resource at Washburn, because they have a very
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
nice
got nice,
nursing
yeah.
college and good nursing college at Washburn.
We've had some volunteers, like retired nurses, reach out, and as long as, they're still physically able to do it, I should say, and still kind of recent with some of their certifications, I guess. I know Erin Price has been reaching out to them to have them come help. But, we just are trying to be mindful also of burnout. These nurses last Thursday were giving vaccines for 9 hours, so, that's pretty exhausting.
And I know a few retired nurses that I know.
Yeah, if they'd like to volunteer, I will give you also the contact for volunteers, who's coordinating volunteers. And we also just need volunteers too, to help out at the clinics, just in bringing people over to specific stations, vaccine stations. We need parking lot volunteers, so if there's any groups out there, that would be helpful. I know we've had some K-State students come over and volunteer. We need people to kind of monitor the room where you wait after you get your vaccine. So, and those volunteers too, like last Thursday and stuff, a lot of them senior citizens in our community were there for 9 hours and no complaints. And so
That didn't surprise me.
that's nice to see.
But also, didn't I see before they were just kind of taking whoever registered kind of in order, but they said that they were going to go through and start pulling out the older and people who had health problems and getting those in
Yeah, I
ahead
got
of the
confused
schedule.
on that because
Okay.
I thought we were doing that randomly, and I did mention that to several people, and
We were never doing it randomly. There was a decision made by someone that instead of saying first come, first serve in that 65 and older population, they decided to instruct individuals to say randomly, which is not the same at all. And created a lot of confusion.
I heard of-
that's,
A lot of confusion.
I heard about that. That's why I was saying, and I
Yeah,
told,
it was never random.
that's
so-
what I tried to explain to
in
them.
that 65 and older group, it was always first come, first served. And then I think it was Friday, we kind of revisited that policy and said, let's get those with severe health conditions to the top of that list. So that's who we are vaccinating today and tomorrow.
and I've had several
early
phone
next
calls
week.
of people saying thanks about that part of it too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so, and, of course, people are complaining about that, but, I don't know how you can want a vaccine ahead of somebody that's 65 and older
Right.
that has severe health conditions, so. Many of whom have been locked in their homes since March. I've talked to them on the phone, I'm sure y'all have talked to those constituents too, that are like, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, so. hopefully we're getting them vaccinated.
So
And
how
the other-
what's crossed my mind is, which we have to be so focused on the here and now, but has there been any talk about educating on maybe the new strains that they'd be more easily caught, and just public education awareness is, here's why we still gotta stay the course, because they're saying, I thought it was a good description, this next one just is more sticky. If you're exposed to it, you're more likely to catch this one.
Yeah. Both of them. But fortunately,
Yeah.
both vaccinations that we have in the process
Well,
still,
we're
yeah.
not one of the states that have that yet, at least that we know, but there's a lot of them around us.
Yeah, and I was also reading an article in which Fauci is now encouraging people to wear 2 masks.
No, I don't have.
I heard something about that.
Yeah, CDC has not released that guidance yet, but he was saying that it is, because this new variant is that much more contagious, that he's recommending people wear 2 masks.
It really is. I'm gonna go home.
Was that,
Plants.
is that if you don't have layers? Because I have like 3 layers in
Yeah,
this
it's a piece.
mask.
Yeah, I
These
think
ones
it's
on
like
the left,
have an
I had
extra layer, but some people are just wearing those neck gaiters that are just
Yeah.
1 layer, or he was even just saying just those surgical masks are not enough.
So here's my question on this, and you may not be able to answer it, but if you go to the doctor or the hospital or someplace, they don't want you wearing these, they want you wearing the surgical mask, and I kind of get why, but then if those aren't adequate enough already, then why the second one? And then what stops us from a third or a fourth?
Yeah, I
Or-
know.
I don't think we really know enough about these to know really anything about it. That's what I'm starting to realize. We just
I don't know, I
don't.
tend to trust Fauci though. He seems like a
Yeah.
pretty smart guy that knows knows the deal. But I think we'll have to see what CDC recommends, but it's almost like they're leaning towards telling people to wear those N95 masks.
Yeah,
Which they had discouraged at first because they were taking them, people were running to get them, and then there wasn't enough for the healthcare professionals that were on the front lines. So,
I know that we use those at work and sanding booths and everything else. So as far as fine particulates, which
Yeah.
droplets are, they are effective for that, right, yeah.
I'm open to any suggestion.
The other thing,
Is that how we're-
I've heard people saying, we're only doing it 2 days a week. It'll take forever to do the count, do everybody. And I said, that's all, and people aren't aware, that's all we get. You don't have a whole storeroom full of them. And I've, on one of those commissioner school things, they talked about the fact that they've had problems because the federal requests the state how many you want, and then the state has to figure out how many and distribute,
yeah.
and then sometimes that many show up and sometimes they don't. And because people said, well, if they're only doing it 2 days a week, it's going to take 2 years to vaccinate everybody. I said, that's all the vaccines they have, they're going to give them out what we get.
Right, and that's the thing too, yeah.
It really, no, I mean, yes and
Yeah.
no. I mean, if we did 1,000 a day, which we did on Thursday, we get to the point where you can do maybe more like 1,500, you do that twice a week, that's 3,000, you're gonna get 12,000 people in a month. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, I know.
it's not gonna
Yeah,
take 2
yeah.
years.
I mean, it's.
I know,
not,
and that's-
a lot of it is supply,
Yeah.
like Greg is saying, it's supply, and we're a little hesitant to give people appointments on the expectation vaccines are coming in and the vaccines don't
Right.
arrive, and we cancel appointments and people are angry that
Right.
we cancel their appointments, so, we just are.
That's a logistical error that through this process will get fixed, and
But I just think that's something maybe in some of your press things, you need to point out that we're only doing this many because that's all we're getting. I mean, I've heard enough of it, no, but somebody was pretty adamant about that this
So,
week.
and that's something that we've been saying, so if there's other places that you suggest I say that, I'm more
Yeah.
than happy to do that.
I-
But, so that's what I'm saying, like, if there's other, places that we're
Yeah, I
we're
don't
not
know.
hitting,
Yeah.
if it's city council meetings or whatever, like, I'm happy to do that, because I'm hesitant to take Julie away from
Yeah,
doing what she has to do at the clinic. I'm happy to get that message out, but we've been saying that, it's just like we've been putting these phone numbers and emails out, and we still have people say, I can't get in touch with anybody.
yeah, I got one of those yesterday.
I got one the other
Saying the
day, she
phone-
said that
phone's
she
not
had
working.
called and it said it was disconnected. Then
Yeah.
I actually called the number myself and they picked right up.
Right.
So I texted her back and said, do you have this number correctly? So I texted the number back correctly. And then she texted me back about 5 minutes later, said, oh yeah, we called, we got through. We're on the list. Okay, good. Phew.
Yeah, I got one of those yesterday
Yeah.
saying, well, I called this number and it
I
doesn't go
just
through,
think
it
with
won't
the
work.
uncertainty and the panic of
Yeah.
this, even with parts of that education, it's it's not gonna sink into everybody. It's just, we're just gonna have to understand that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the more places that we can reiterate that,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we do that
Sure.
and that we're communicating with as many people. I mean, that's on me, so I'm open to any suggestions.
sure.
Well, you could, I know
It's
that,
actually, it's 9:15. We gotta let Clancy have his time.
We've got our time.
I think COVID news is depressing. Wait till you hear about legislation.
Actually, never mind. Go ahead.
I'll go to
Good
sleep
morning.
over there.
Cancel Clancy's time today.
Good morning, Commissioners. Clancy Holman, Riley County Councilor. I want to talk about two bills in particular to start with. They're in front of the legislature and are set for hearing next week. The first being Senate Bill 13. That is the vaunted transparency bill. It creates a whole slew of new requirements on counties across the state to basically send out notices, schedule hearings, that kind of thing. It's an overlay of new requirements that are pretty onerous. Now, the interesting thing is part and parcel of this bill as it exists now, and I highlight that, as it exists today. Whenever I'm talking with you about a bill, assume I mean as it reads now, at least based upon the best information. And sometimes they will get changed before, there will be an amendment that will be out there before I'm even aware of it. I'll try and catch you up on those as they come up. But part and parcel of this bill, the interesting thing is, aside from those new onerous notice requirements, which will create new expenses, which will be borne by all the taxpayers in the county, if this goes through, if it gets passed. And I'll come back to that, because the chances are pretty good some version of it will be. It does repeal the tax lid. Now, that's probably, I haven't heard this term used on it, but I kind of view that as bait to get people to support it. Because what it substitutes is a revenue neutral process, which requires a cap on, basically on the levies that the county commissions impose. That's what it's going to amount to. You can only raise as much as you did in the previous year, is what it amounts to. It's not that simple, but, and I'm not a numbers guy, as Rich would attest, but I will just tell you that it's still controlled from the state level, from the high altitude level of what local governments are doing in order to fund the programs that the state requires it to carry out. So it's an odd, as usual, kind of an odd means of control. But this bill is set for hearing next Tuesday. And we were requested, KAC asked us to weigh in, and I will often do this and bring it up to speed when I can. There's simply no way to make sure, I've mentioned this before, there's no way to make sure that the action that I take on your behalf or that our lobbyists take on your behalf, we don't have time to have a meeting. We don't have time to get a consensus, to send out a notice of a special meeting and have the board weigh in on something. And so what we have to rely on is knowing what the board has done recently and your policy direction. And we will always try and if you see that we're not doing so, you simply need to tell me individually. Speak up. Don't ever be shy about doing that. I know you won't be, because we can always put the brakes on something if you believe we're headed down the wrong path. You will get many. This is the first, I promise you, more than you want to receive on legislative items, because I will err on the side of caution and send you items that maybe there's something we really don't need. Just because I send you something doesn't mean I am suggesting you need to do something, because there will be certain items of interest, or maybe interest of the county commission generally, that there isn't any action you need to take. But I'll try and be clear in that in what I send you, what I forward to you, and I'll try and make sure that you understand why you're getting something. And if you have questions, never hesitate to contact me. Never hesitate to contact me with an idea. If you see something that maybe the county's supporting and you think it could be improved, certainly we can have that conversation. There's no reason not to, individually. So I just want to highlight that. But we were contacted by KAC, the county staff was, and asked to, on Senate Bill 13, ask one of our members of our delegation to support an amendment that's going to be offered at the committee level next Tuesday to Senate Bill 13. That amendment is worthwhile because it does match what KAC is asking for in terms of moving the dates. moving the dates of this from 2021 to 2022, the effective date and all the notice dates. That at least gives us an opportunity, assuming this bill goes forward, and going back to what I said earlier, we're being told by people on the ground there who should know that some version of this is going to go through, one way or the other. And there's some part and parcel of the truth of that is probably borne out in the fact that how quickly this got to where it is right now. There was no time really for counties to analyze what the bill said, to get ready to testify again. It's a form basically of what we'd opposed previously. But, you know, it does have some differences. And so it would have been nice. I would suggest it would have been transparent on the part of the legislature. Had they given counties the opportunity to come and say what they thought about it. And we're not asking that the counties win on every item, but at least give counties the opportunity to speak up and speak up on behalf of their constituents, the taxpayers, the same constituents, the legislators. So we're not given that opportunity, I would submit, on Senate Bill 13, not really. But since it's coming up for hearing, we did contact, at the request of KAC, we contacted a member of our delegation, suggested that they please support this amendment that's being offered by KAC to change all those dates. We take the recommendations of KAC on the legislative items usually with a great deal of faith, because
they're good.
They're good. Jay Hall is really good.
He's sharp, very sharp.
Knows what he's doing. He is great at counting votes and votes that are coming. Good analytical mind, and I just have a lot of faith that I think worn out in the past couple of sessions. He just does good work. And when Jay gives the opinion, this is probably going to go. It's probably going to go.
He said this last year, that he didn't think this was going to happen last year, and this is before COVID. But he thought that they would come back with some variation of it this next year and it would pass, and that's where we're at. So he was a year in advance on that. So
Are they was the governor going to sign it, or what?
Well, even if she would not, the way the
There's enough-
legislature shapes,
There's enough to
vetoes are
override
gonna
even
be
if she
overridden.
veto it? Okay.
yeah,
they'll, on items like this, that's usually what enters into the calculation when Jay makes it, I'm sure. If it goes through, then is the governor going to veto? And if it goes through, is it going to be veto proof? Based on the numbers that he's seeing. And it's always an evaluation. He can be wrong.
Oh,
I'm not saying
yeah,
he's perfect.
I'm doing the best.
did he make
yes.
mention that he thought she would or wouldn't on this one?
I did not think to ask, and I don't think he gave me any indication.
I think if this one goes through, because they know that they have a veto in place, I think she signs it.
Probably. Or lets it sit on her desk with a
Yeah,
prescribed
that's
amount of
probably the
time. Either
process.
way,
Yeah.
who knows?
Is that 10 days, right?
I think it's 10 days.
10
Has
working
been.
days.
I don't want to guess at that.
Okay.
So I know it's 10 days, the last I looked, and until they change the rules again, which they've been known to do. But that's kind of where that one shakes out. I want to let you know why we're taking the position we are. I want to make sure you're okay with that, that with those dates, we can live with it. At least it gets rid of the tax lid, and at least it gives us an opportunity to marshal counties, perhaps, to get some way of maybe getting it repealed, potentially. And it's kind of a dream scenario, but or amended in some better way next session. But we have to be realistic when something's rolling down the tracks like this one, I think.
I don't see how it's any really different than the tax cap itself, to be honest with you.
Well, it's in terms of
I mean, I guess if
good
you want to go
idea.
through the other actual process, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
you get to the other side of whereas the tax cap, I guess you're limited, but I don't know. I think the discussion on this is pretty accurate. It's trading one bad piece of legislation and legislative narrative with another one doesn't cancel the two out and make anything better. And it still doesn't, I think if you're going to force local municipalities and counties to do this, I also think that the state should be held to the same accountability. And they're
That's my
not.
thing.
And that's the real, to me, that's the real issue here. What we're going to be faced with down the road, and I mentioned this before, I think while the prior commission was on here, what this is really going to take is a full-scale, total new tax policy. We're going to have to deconstruct everything that we have at the state and county levels and start all over and build it back up from scratch at some point in time.
That's what I thought. They're saying we can't get it valuation increases.
Right.
But if income increases, they don't have to notify us that they're getting more taxes. They keep putting stuff on us that doesn't apply to them.
Right.
I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but,
I don't know what the percentage,
Bring it up.
and maybe Rich can answer this. I don't know what the percentage for Riley County that goes back to the state on its own. I mean, they're part of that equation too, isn't it? It's like,
I don't know.
it's not a large percent, it's 5, 6, somewhere in that equation, but 5, 6% with not the same cap on it, still, still is what it is.
And it's all about state control of local government. That's the appalling part. When you folks are elected to make those decisions, they take that authority out of your hands, really.
We have 3 public budget hearings through the process, right? 3. I've been through 6 of those in 2 years now. If it's about transparency and open and honesty, fair enough. But out of those 6 budget hearings, outside of the people that have a vested interest, where it's interdepartmental or outside agency or whomever, I've seen 2 regular, normal, average citizens here engaged in that process. And one of them actually ran for one of these seats during that process. I don't know. I just don't see in this process where that part's going to change necessarily. So.
but it applies to counties and cities, but it doesn't apply to school boards. Is that
No,
correct?
It does not apply to school
Yeah.
districts.
And then, but also, is it anything like, any ones like the township, because township roads have a, no,
It would- it would
That
apply
part's
to them.
included.
so even if the township.
There was,
wants-
originally last year, there was a threshold, right? Like 5,000 or something. If it was underneath that,
Rich may remember.
Didn't have to
that.
do that.
Remember, there was some kind of,
But that's part of the crux of it. I mean, all the township, cemetery districts, small cities, if any of them exceed that revenue neutral, then it's my responsibility as the county clerk to send those notices in our expense. And so,
Except it said in here on this one now, because that's what I thought of, that we had to send, the county had sent, except here it says something about that the subdivisions have to repay us by the end of the year. So you have to do it and then keep track of the costs and send them a bill, right?
Yep.
well, it's all that churning of staff time on those
Yeah.
kinds of things that is, I'm sorry, it seems to me kind of wrong-headed.
Well, the
I don't
staff
see the
time,
benefit.
they compress the timelines.
Oh, yeah.
Just think of the time when they're doing it. They're doing it at the same time our office is conducting a primary election. The exact same time, July and August. And so that's what I have responded to Mr. Highland is, this could potentially also cost overtime.
Yeah.
And none of these items are budgeted for in 2021.
No.
We want this to be in effect for 2021.
Right.
It'll cost us $18,500 if we have to do the mailer to all county residents. That's not budgeted for in
But
2021.
But then do you have to send a separate one if the county and separate one for the township board, a separate one for the city?
As far as I understand at this point.
So you could end up,
I
sending
think
twice
we
that
estimated
many.
that last year somewhere in the vicinity of about 50 to 55,000 total cost. That wasn't with personnel, obviously.
No, the mailing was $18,500. Our software company, it will cost, that we've had them give us a ballpark figure, it'll cost about $30,000 for them to implement the change in the system, in our tax system. Of course, that's a one-time change, once they change the program, but of course, the legislature can never leave anything alone. And then
Yeah, they'll
we
change it
do
again next year. Yeah.
But every bill they ever come up with to have state control on local taxation costs more money. It's more notices, more publications. They're about saving tax dollars, but they put mandates on us to spend more tax dollars. It's just ridiculous.
And that's what you'll get a sense for the longer you serve. I would just say to any kind of commissioner, you'll find out how much of your energy must be devoted to doing things the state requires you to do and that cost money at the local level. The state's not paying for those things. And your constituents are. Anyway, have I got to the point where you're kind of enjoying COVID now? I've got one other bill I want to talk about. This one is Senate Bill 72. And this one, on its surface, this is one of those that's likewise, I would say, a very bad idea. but it's maybe not apparent on the surface why it's a bad idea. What it really does, Senate Bill 72, is drastically and dramatically alter the educational requirements for county appraisers statewide. That might not seem like a big deal on its surface. Well, who cares? Well, the problem is the standards they want to subject county appraisers to, talking to Greg McHenry, our county appraiser, who's well aware of this bill, and well aware of what it would do, it puts requirements on county appraisers who don't fit. They don't fit what the mission of county appraisers is. Unlike fee appraisers, county appraisers have to value every parcel as of January 1 every year. Unlike fee appraisers, county appraisers are graded by the state, by PVD, Property Valuation Division, on an annual basis. And the valuations that they come up with, county appraisers across the state, they have to meet state-imposed standards for how close their overall values are for the massive properties they appraise come to fair market value, and they have to be within a certain percentage. And if they're not, the state has the authority under state law to come in and take over the given appraiser's office. Things are wildly out of whack, you know, and they've done that in the past. They've done that in other counties, not here, but they've done it. And so it matters how well educated our county appraisers are statewide, and it ought to be consistent with the skill level, the skill set they need in order to mass appraise property, not to fee appraise properties for a bank loan. Totally different skill set. They use the same approaches, certainly to come up with those values of cost, income, those kinds of things. I'm leaving out a third one, but I'm not an appraiser. Not only am I not an mathematician, I'm not an appraiser. But I do respect the amount of time they have to devote to education. You'll often hear from Greg, he recently approved some training that they do because they have to have a given level of professionalism and education to do their job right. And even then, they struggle on commercial properties to keep those values high enough. That is tough because in areas that are thriving, historically Raleigh County, historically Johnson County, it's tough because the values according to the market, which is always the goal, the market drives those things, and that's all that the county appraisers are trying to do statewide. You'll hear an awful lot about the phrase, I'll just warn you, about rogue appraisers. That used to be thrown around in legislative hearings. I presumably will hear about that again. They're painted as somebody who's artificially imposing values. They can't get away with it because of that grade they have to get from PVD. That does not happen. And one of the things that's always been disheartening to me on these arguments about additional requirements that make no sense for county appraisers. In the past, one of the things they wanted to do is make it an elective office. Well, that'd be a great idea.
And let me chime in on that one because that's a process that's in place in Colorado. And I have talked to a Colorado County Commissioner where they had to spend $300,000 to train an 18-year-old just graduated out of high school who won an elected seat for that position.
Okay.
So that they had so they had the right training and discourse to at least do the actual job. That's considering what you do as appraiser. That's unfathomable, completely.
Yeah, the whole point of the appraisal process statewide for property tax purposes is it's supposed to be non-political. It's supposed to be objective standards that are measurable. And that's what Kansas does, except when the legislature tries to tweak it in ways like this. Quite frankly, according to Greg, he's a national figure in a county mass appraisal. He wouldn't admit to that, but I'll tell you that because he's respected for his opinion. But he hears from other counties across the nation, and routinely they get telling horror stories about their own state that maybe are politicized, maybe don't have those professional standards. We're kind of on the state level. We're held up as an example of how other states want their appraisal process to work. And I'm not kidding. He's heard that for years. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they want to know, how do we do it? How do they convince their legislature to put in place a system that we have right now and that bills like this undercut? Because they take away those things that make the system work. On this one, there's going to be a hearing in Senate taxation. Next assessment and taxation next Thursday at 9:30. What's being requested is that we, if possible, and this was on Greg McHenry's suggestion. It would be good to have a county commissioner testify if someone's available, if somebody's comfortable doing it. I haven't been told yet what the deadline is for submitting testimony. I'm trying to find that out through a contract lobbyist. He was not aware of that yesterday in terms of, wasn't sure, and there's a possibility they may make testimony. The deadline might even be tomorrow. That throws a wrench into things. So first of all,
Would that be written testimony or verbal testimony?
it would be best to have, when you do the live testimony, normally you submit testimony in writing also.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would encourage, if we do that, to do both. I'll draft it. And,
I don't know how we're going
anybody's
to do that with a meeting right at that time.
well, you can step away for a minute and testify if you like. You can go on a break. You can put that actually on the agenda
Okay.
and say you're going to be gone for that period of time, and you obviously still have a quorum. It just depends. You might mull that over during this meeting and decide if somebody's available to do it. Because I think it's important to stand up on these kinds of things, even if it's not, like this one, if I were told this bill was going through, you still need to be on record, I think, of saying this is a really bad idea.
But you're saying some of the education requirements are requiring to take some stuff that doesn't really apply.
Doesn't apply at all because it's not mass appraisal. Their coursework on fee appraisers, and I'm not disparaging fee appraisers.
What's the difference between a fee appraiser and a mass? I don't know what.
Fee appraiser is somebody who normally, that's what most people are familiar with in the private sector. When the bank is dealing a loan, they need an appraisal of a house to refinance or that kind of thing. They have certain standards they have to meet, and the standards for independent fee appraisers are not the same. They don't have to look at the same thing. They don't have to look at uniform and equal rates of assessment. That isn't the goal of a fee appraisal. True, it's tied to the market. Again, I'm not disparaging it. I'm just saying it's something
It's
totally
something
different.
different. Oh, okay.
The goal is different. Ours, whereas mass appraisers in this state, and probably in most, have to meet a constitutional mandate at the end of the day. And if they don't, those state standards that the state imposes are going to say, you did this wrong, you need to make some corrections. We'll tell you too, on Senate Bill 13, just to back up a little bit, I'm going to steal a little bit of Kevin's time here.
You already are.
He's not objecting. It's just to tell you, there's another amendment I want you to watch for, because it's one, just because you hear the phrase amendment being offered, it doesn't mean it's ours. There's an amendment being offered to Senate Bill 13 that returns county commissioners to a direct role in appraised valuation. That amendment that's being, I don't know if it'll actually get offered, but it's being circulated. And it would say that before the values are certified, this board would look at the appraisals, decide whether they're right, and then you could make adjustments by percentages or however you want to do it, send it back to the appraiser. That's exactly wrong for the same reason.
Yeah, I
the
don't
same
think about appraisal.
I'm just gonna go on the record and say Greg's work and everything they do is not something that I understand fully in 2 years in this process. I don't think it'll take years.
Crazy.
It'll just take years on that one. So I don't know.
Well, 'cause
And they're
how
trying
many-
to work that from an honesty and transparency standpoint. That's not the way to go with that.
And I
It's
don't,
not.
The big problem with it is you never want an elected official to be determining those values, because then you
Yeah,
get pressure from
right.
individuals.
Uh-huh.
individual
Special
people
interests.
In the community,
Yeah.
special interests to artificially reduce those.
Right.
And that's why that's always a bad idea.
I've always-
Whether the
yeah.
appraisers are elected
Yeah.
or they move it to the county commissioners who are elected to have that authority. It's never
I've
bad.
always said one thing, if you want to argue rates of taxation, specific taxations are too high or too low, that's one argument. But it's got to be a fair process for everybody around the board. And if it's too high, then you argue that specific point separately. But, well, one doesn't get to, have a lower rate than the other one based off of variables that, we're obviously discussing here. So.
And
yeah.
how many thousand properties are there in the county, and we're supposed to look at them and know which
Greg
ones
told me
we're
the
up-
parcel count, I want to say it's close to 20,000, but I'm not sure. It's
I was thinking it was higher than that.
Is
I thought it was
higher than
closer to
that?
I think
28.
it's between 20 and 30.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Told you I wouldn't remember that. That's my proof. I'll just say one final thing here. Yeah, I would like permission from the board, as you discuss, we go through the meeting, kind of hash out whether one of you be available to testify. If you're not, I would appreciate giving me the authority to do some written testimony and live testimony possibly, if that's okay.
I would
On
actually
Senate
su-
Bill 13.
Yeah.
Not on 13, on 72.
I would actually probably suggest that, Clancy, and I say that because you're gonna spend a good part of some time between now and then trying to update one of us on what needs to be said to feel comfortable about it. I think you and Greg both have full trust and faith and you understand the dynamics of this.
Okay, well, I'll try and
I guess maybe there is maybe a little bit more of a ploy there when you're trying to make a point to have another elected official on board. So, I mean, I'm gonna leave that out too, but in terms of where we generally stand, I would trust that both of you would be able to fill those gaps in better than myself and either one of the other two commissioners at this point.
Well, Greg can rein me in on the appraisal stuff,
Okay.
and I'll try and be nice. Talk to
And the thing is, have the commissioner do it and just say on behalf of the Riley County Commission,
Oh, sure.
that way they know.
And when we do written testimony, we usually all three sign it.
You
So,
do, and that's when it would have more
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
But again, we may be shortcut on that because the deadline may turn
Sure.
out to be tomorrow. In which case, I can turn in something, Greg can turn in something, but we won't be able to have anything signed by. And it's on the items that are of primary concern to you, I would always encourage you to consider doing live testimony.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference in terms of, because it's too easy for them to say, well, they didn't care enough
to be
to
here.
have, to be there. Who cares? Yeah. So that's all I got. I thank you for that. I apologize for taking up Kevin's time.
Kevin will just send you a bill later. It's all good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clancy.
Clancy.
All right, Kevin, I'll give you as much time as you need to. So don't feel the need to hurry.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for your time today. I did not actually give a commission presentation in December due to scheduling, et cetera. So this is for the last couple of months, but ITGAS, that's my department, GIS, IT, however. We've been extremely busy over the last couple of months as reflected in the report here. I'll just give you a few highlights. Feel free to ask any questions as necessary. A lot of our efforts have been obviously COVID-19 related, all the way from work we're doing at the district court to reconfigure some of the courtrooms to add some security cameras, a lot of very specific needs they have over there, to the huge effort we've made to get people the ability to work from home with various tools that we have, which these guys can tell you was pretty well non-existent before COVID, but we've had to adjust, and I think we've done a pretty good job doing that. Here lately, we've installed some software that allow people to use this was a concern, people working from home, and then in some of our departments having to call some of their clients, say, you don't want your personal cell phone to show up on that client's phone necessarily. So we put in some software with our Cisco call system that allows folks to simulate using their work phone. So when they call a client or whoever they need to call, it shows up as a Riley County number. That was pretty important. Got that put in place here lately. One thing that we did do in the last 2 months that the commission approved was a purchase of a new firewall. Again, that was COVID related. Our old one, we tried to get like 7 years out of the major IT equipment in our data center, switches, routers, firewalls, etc. 7 years is a pretty good target to aim for. And we weren't going to swap this out until this year, 2022. But due to, again, to the work from home need, we did have to bump that up a little bit and purchase that out of COVID related funds and get that firewall installed. All went well. And now we're able to support the county in our remote needs. So some other things we've been doing, we're pretty heavily involved with the IT activations, like when you came on board, when I came on board, we have to set up accounts, do all the things necessary to get people set up on various systems. So we've been working closely with the new HR manager to kind of streamline that process on the IT activations and some training that needs to happen with new employees, that sort of thing. So we're in the middle of that process, working to get that more streamlined, a little smoother than it has been in the past. One other major, I'm kind of out of order here on some things, but we had another major equipment purchase in the last few months, and that's our SAN. I'll refer to that in the upcoming commission meetings occasionally. That's the storage area network. That's the data repository for all the data in the county. And basically, we had to data is something that never goes down. As things become more and more computerized, the need to store more and more records, back things up, et et cetera, et cetera. That need always usually goes out, but then we did, with the commission's permission, purchase a SAN expansion cabinet, got that installed. So we're pretty good for the next several years in our data needs in the county, at least as far as we can anticipate right now, of course. Obviously, with our new PIO on board, we've been updating some of and reviewing some of our social media policies, that sort of thing. We'll continue to do that as time goes by and COVID allows it. But that'll be a good effort to work in concert with the PIO on how the county's website looks, what messages are getting put out, social media, website entries, etc., that sort of thing. So that'll be an effort that we'll concentrate on in the upcoming year. One thing that happened late last year, we do our assist with our asset inventory process here in the county on a yearly basis, and IT has a big part in that. We successfully moved to not a new asset management system, but we upgraded ours. It was quite antiquated. We got on the latest cloud-based version, and that included some training for the departments and other departments. We had been doing a lot of the IT inventory process for them. Well, it didn't make much sense to have somebody visit a desk to inventory the chair and the desk and not get the computer. So we worked to integrate that in their process. That went fairly successfully, and we're continuing to improve that process. Another big component of IT, of course, is our data center. Along with the SAN and the Firewall I mentioned, VMware is our server-based platform. We have big servers that support a lot of applications, basically, if you will, and those back-end servers have to be replaced. Here again, we try to aim at that 7-year mark. So we replaced a couple of those last year, and this will come up on a fairly regular yearly basis. There's 1 or 2 large items that we need to upgrade. One item that we're going to have to focus on in 2021 here, something that actually we would have done last year, but it got deferred again due to COVID, is upgrading our Microsoft Office environment. You're all familiar with Word and Excel and all that. Well, we're a Microsoft Enterprise client, so we can upgrade our Office versions as part of our licensing agreement. And we're getting a little dated on the version that we're on. It's still fully supported, but that doesn't last forever. They drop support after a certain amount of time. So you'll be hearing more in 2021 about plans to upgrade our Office environment. That is a few tidbits from the IT side of things. I'll kind of shift gears over to our GIS department. Our GIS website, I don't know how much the new commissioners have time they spent on it, but I like to think that we're pretty well known in the state for having a really...
It's the best one in the state. Go ahead.
Yeah, we are pretty well known for our...
It really is.
I mean, we've always been a leader in GIS.
When I have conversations with other commissioners and stuff around the state, they ask questions about ours, and that's the reason why.
And I just invite you to get on neighboring counties'
I have-
websites and compare.
Yeah, and that's, and I'm an old IT hand, so I wasn't a GIS person, so I've learned a lot in the last 6 years, but obviously after talking to the title companies, the real estate people, et cetera, it's a very public facing type of thing. And they're definitely, let it be known when there's any kind of issues or problems. So we try to
Planning
keep
uses it
up
quite a
on
bit
that.
too, just for reference.
So anyway, that's, I just needed to throw that out a little bit. A lot of people think, and maybe I did at one time, think that this is more of a map making group. It's not. It's very digitized and highly computerized anymore. That's why most places have merged the IT and GIS departments together, much like the county did a number of years ago before my time. So anyway, some of the things here that we do and have done in the past few months, year-end type duties like updating the Ag Use Report to pull the 2021 values, very heavily used by the appraisers, obviously. Llama, that's, I didn't indicate there, but that's used by the planning group to planning and development. We've created map services. I know some of this stuff's kind of specific type of data, but basically it simplifies the process to get the software to work correctly instead of having to do manual uploads on a regular basis. I'll just say that. You'll notice me mention in upcoming meetings our ArcGIS environment. That's our Esri product, or part of the Esri suite of products. And we do have to upgrade that on a regular basis. So we did do our successful yearly, it's sometimes more than yearly, upgrade to ArcGIS recently. Assisting the clerk's office in the certification of tax units by submitting GIS data to the state. Obviously, we do a lot of assist with a lot of data submissions on a year-end basis to the state and various programs. A lot of work in that. All the way down to the smaller things like updating our data and maps to talk about the new Board of County Commissioner members and reflecting them correctly on our website, on our GIS and
Yeah, just out of
websites.
curiosity, Kevin, can you change colors on there, like the color of jackets? It's a topic of conversation for me,
Is that
apparently.
right?
Yeah.
Well, what I like to say is you can always ask the question.
Can you Photoshop blue maybe for some purple? I mean, it's not that drastic of a change.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I quit after answering
Wait
questions
till
about
you see
it.
the next color of it.
We'll keep that in mind.
I look like Bernie Sanders in an ad from a Burlington coat factory.
Yeah,
We were gonna add Vince to that.
Got the
Yeah, sure you were.
Yeah, just going down the list, participate in the 2021 Citrus Bounty and annexation. So obviously the city does a lot of their own stuff, but all the small cities, the townships, when a road's added or properties annexed, there's all kinds of back-end updates that happen on the GIS website to have what our goal is always, the most accurate data physically possible on that website. So I know that's just kind of a brief upshot, and I know that, I don't know actually what your familiarity with ITGIS in the past. I know Commissioner Ford's obviously, but the other two, if you have any questions regarding ITGIS, always open to answer them in as, whatever format is necessary. I entertain any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I will give you kind of a heads up. There's some things maybe with the new PIO and stuff we need to work on down the road and meetings and how we incorporate some stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
We don't have to have that discussion this morning. It's all good.
Well, I think, with IT things, and GIS obviously, but things are changing continually, so we're very used to and able to accommodate changes like, be it social media or whatever, website presence, whatever it needs to be. We can definitely take anything you need into consideration and give some recommendations. So, any other questions for ITGIS? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the work from home
Yes.
project. How many are you limited to the amount of employees that can be on that, or?
That's a great question. We initially were, again, back to that firewall, some of the work from home we had done, I would guess, and here I'm kind of, can't quote exactly, but there were never more than 3 to 4 people at any given time that were remotely connected, maybe 10 at the most. It was a very low number. And that would just be people going to, like Greg going to a appraisers conference in Chicago, or Commissioner Ford going, well, maybe not that, that's not a good example. I don't know if he was remote, but you know what I mean.
I have.
Yeah, okay, people going, places for meetings and remoting in. That all changed with COVID, obviously. We had to do a lot more. We added new tools, so the new firewall allowed for more connections to the county from external secure connections. There's a key point, because security is such a big deal with this. When we can't control, we need to control the devices and, for viruses, malware, that sort of thing, huge piece of it. But we added a new software suite called SplashTop. It's just another way of remoting in. We use that a lot to get these external connections in. So we were up at one point, I think 40 or 50 people were remoting in. And now that's changed as departments have changed their practices. So we get the request from the department head, we tell them the approximate price, get the approval, we go ahead and move forward. I know their business practices have dictated, some departments have not worked from home at all, being IT and GIS being one of them, we need to be here. Some departments have been able to work part of their department from home. Some have done, one day half the department, the other half the department work from home. But basically, what you keep in mind on the work from home thing, the way the software we have in place now, you're basically taking over your machine here at work. So anything non-physical, obviously, if you print out a piece of paper, you're gonna have somebody else get up and do something with it for you, that's physical. But you're taking over your computer here at work, so anything you can do here at your computer from work, you can do from home. And it's been very successful, I think, in most all cases, we haven't had a lot of, once we get them set up and configured, which is always, a bit of a challenge, we can't control things like the internet speed they have at home, that sort of thing. They have to have sufficient resources at home, but once they provide that, then we can get them set up where they can be very effective from home. It's working well.
So there's no limit on the amount of people you can.
It's a
do that with?
licensure thing, so as long as, the department head again agrees to buy the license, there's practical limits to everything, obviously, but from a realistic perspective, not really.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what kind of cost is involved to the department? Is it per employee or is it an overall license or how does
It kind of depends. We do with the splash top licensing that we've recently been using since COVID started. The approximate cost is it's on a yearly basis. It's minimal. It's under 50. Don't quote me on that. I think it's around $50. And then of course there's the whole, do they need a machine at home? County doesn't pay for their internet access, obviously, so that's part of it. That's part of what would be required is good internet access. But just that license to remote in and take over the machine here at work is fairly minimal cost-wise. Now, does that meet what they need to do to get their job done? That's a decision that I don't make. That's the department heads decide if that qualifies or not. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I've always liked the GIS. I've always liked maps. I've always been interested. So I'll be reading something like, where is that? I'll look. I mean, I use it a lot to look up, but also even because I was on the planning board in the city of Riley, and they use that a lot. For when people had additions or new houses or stuff to clarify where lines are and how
For me, that's
they
probably,
use that all the time.
yeah, that's probably where I've used it the most, working with planning.
Well, it's such a powerful tool and so many things you can put out there. Obviously, we got regulatory things that need to happen every year and businesses that access it, but we have a lot of interesting stuff out there like, it's on the sheet here, but there's an 1881 historical app out there. Because we get, people, and this kind of came up more before COVID, I haven't heard much lately, but people researching their family roots and all. They say, well, my great-great-granddad moved to the county. I want to see some of that information. One of our staff members in GIS has reached out to the state and downloaded information, pulled some of that old survey information, maps, this and that into a website so you can actually look out at a lot of the material. This is all on the website. Look at the material that was available in 1881, or now she's working on a 1909 version of the app. So we put heat maps out there that show where we've done that in the past, where, hotspots for wrecks, we just aggregate all the data over a number of years, whatever, where wrecks have happened, kind of get a good idea of where, trouble spots are. There's just lots of possibilities with maps out there, along with the normal, values of parcels and ownership and all that information that obviously a lot of people use in the business world. So. Okay. No, with that, I appreciate your time, and obviously if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can elaborate. We'll work on those color changes there. So.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Have a good day.
Now we have Shelley on Zoom.
Yes, I see her up there. And I'm sorry, Shelley, we're about 10 minutes behind on schedule this morning.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Good morning.
Morning.
You have, I think, 3 contracts in front of you, and I will hopefully help you make up for time today. The electronic monitoring is the first one, and we use it as a sanction or response to violations. It's an alternative to jail or juvenile detention, and as you can imagine, with COVID, we have a need to not be putting people in jail for short-term stays and, possibly exposing the entire facility. So this has kind of pressed me moving this through, in addition to implementing drug court here in a couple of months. Just as an example, in FY19, we had 8 youth that were detained in detention and could have been on electronic monitoring. We will have to pay a shelf fee. However, I was able to negotiate to be allowed to have 3 spare on hand before we would have to pay that shelf fee. Currently, we are paying a third-party service provider $8 to $10 a day to provide electronic monitoring services, and they come from either Topeka, Salina, or El Dorado, depending on who can get to us quickest from the point of our court hearing when the judge orders electronic monitoring until getting here to the jail or detention center in Junction City and actually installing the device for the individual. And so not only do we have that $8 to $10 a day cost, we also have that lag in time frame with not having our own equipment. We're going to go from the $8 to $10 a day to $2.51 a day for basic house arrest. So when they're just locked down, 24 hours a day, or they might be allowed out for school or employment or treatment, but we are notified if they would leave their house, not during their window of times that they are allowed to. And then the GPS would be $3.50 a day. And with GPS, of course, we can have exclusionary zones where, if they had a particular victim in the community or a sex offender, we could do exclusionary zones for that individual with the GPS and even at the $3.50 a day. We're going to start with 5 units. And just as a quick example, if we had 5 units, if I was using a third-party vendor, it would be $1,240 a month versus $607.60 a month. So if we have 5 out there being utilized, we would save $632 a month. Eventually, because we are not implementing a COLA or a merit this year, and my budgets are due, of course, to the state before our county budgets are due. And so I had to budget those increases. And so I will have some extra at the end of June, and I'm looking to buy versus rent the units, which would even be a greater cost saving. So that's kind of my plan moving forward. We do anticipate the drug court model is very immediate. And so the rules are clear and consistent, and they have to be swiftly enforced with appropriate graduated sanctions. So delayed punishments really don't work with the folks that we're working with, especially our substance users. And so once we implement drug court this spring, I really anticipate possibly even having the need for more 5 electronic monitoring devices. If you will, I will share my screen. And I forgot to say earlier, Mr. Holman was super helpful with all of these documents and catching things that saved us money and potential liability suits down the line. And he and I, over the last 2 months, have spent a lot of time on these documents to make sure that I'm protected and you're protected. So I just want to thank Clancy for his help. Initially in your packet, the one that you have says John Ford, but after further review yesterday, Clancy pointed out that throughout the entire document, it references community corrections, and he was fine with your approval, me signing those documents, since it does reference community corrections throughout the document and not Mr. Ford. The next error from the packet that you found, well, that is actually in the next contract that we're going to look at. So before I move on with the next contract, do you have any questions over the electronic monitoring services?
I don't, Shelley. I think you explained it pretty well. I'm not sure about the other two commissioners, but
Okay.
no.
I'm good.
Motion if you wish to approve it.
I'll
We're
move.
good?
Move to
Okay.
approve. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussions, questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Am I okay to go on?
You sure are.
Okay, thank you. The next contract that you have is Xerox, and I want to apologize. In the historical part of my commission agenda report, I was provided or misinformed that, in fact, our local pro copy is still representing Xerox, and I apologize for that misinformation that I put there.
I was actually going to ask that question, so thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. We discovered that late in the day yesterday, so I do apologize for that misinformation. We do have before you a 5-year contract. It is $60 less per month, and that amounts to $750 savings a year and about $3,600 over the life of the contract. And what you new folks will come to learn is that I get flat funding or reduced funding every year, and personnel costs continue to rise. And so wherever I can save money, I try to. With our current contract, our prices were going up per copy, both black and white and color, every single year without being able to control that. And they just really were becoming out of touch with my budget. So we were able to negotiate this, and I'll share my screen again with Mr. Holman's help. We crossed out what is your page 43 and my particular page 14A. This is where probably in excess of 5 years ago, I missed this clause in the document. I probably needed readers back then and didn't get them. But this is where it could go up 15% every year on the anniversary of the contract. And so with Mr. Holman and then again, negotiating with the vendor, I was able to X that out so that it will not go up over the life of the contract. The next page is page 44, my page 14B. This date here, it was a 60-day term, but we began these negotiations, in November. And so I wanted to make sure, and I changed that yesterday. I wanted to make sure that 60 months actually took effect from the date that I sign it. Page 47 or my 14D, again, that was a November or December date, and changed that to today's date. And then the agreement number is actually generated once the contract is signed. So I still don't have an agreement number. And then this was not in your contract, and we discovered it yesterday that it was not in there. And what it reflected is it said this proposal is guaranteed for 30 days. Well, when you go back to December and you look at that, that was not enough time to guarantee those prices. And so we increased that to 45 days, as well as changing the installation or documentation fee of $105 that had expired as well. And so we were able to change those numbers yesterday. And I did have the occasion to speak to the sales rep and back and forth yesterday with these changes. And he was accepting of those changes if you folks are. Any questions?
Saying these contracts.
You have to click, if you're using the specific minute tracks, I just use it off of email, but I found it to be easier. But off of mine, if you just click the little yellow thing there, we'll pull them up. But this one is 50 something pages. So yeah, you're not going to have a lot of time to to look through them at the moment, I don't think. It's kind of pretty standard, basically, with what we pretty much do countywide. It's just different with Shelley because hers is really a state contracted service that we provide space and some things for. So she has to kind of work that outside because it's technically over the course of that would be over 10 grand. Is that right, Shelley?
The savings?
No, the total amount. That's
Oh.
why you have to bring it to us because it's technically a contract for over a total of 10 grand. Is that right?
Well, it's 10 grand annually, so I think I'm still underneath it, but Mr. Holman, and I'm not sure if he's handy, but he requires, because we are a county agency, even though we're state funded, any contracts that I engage in, we have to get your authorization.
That's basically why she's bringing it to us.
Oh, okay, yeah, I just am not seeing it here.
Okay. That's going to be an IT issue from that side. I can't solve that problem.
Yeah,
But
it's just,
I need a motion, commissioners, if you wish to approve that contract.
I'm making a motion to approve the contract.
No second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. If you have any further questions when you do review it, you can always get with Shelley. She's
Okay.
easy to work with, so it's not a problem. They can get those answered. So if there's no further discussion or comments, all those in favor?
All right.
Do we have something we need to sign, or is that another one you need to sign, Shelley?
That's another one that I need to sign. And the last one, I won't spend much time and try to catch up on your schedule. I'm in the process of negotiating with the Clay County Sheriff's Office to provide random drug testing. We do not currently have random up there for lots of reasons. One being I have a female officer and 98% of our clients are male offenders. So I got a grant mid-October that would pay for these costs. We're just still in the negotiation process, and they don't have a county counselor, so their county attorney, who's newly elected and started on January 11th, is reviewing it. And as you can imagine, he's a little overwhelmed and swamped with prosecution issues. So I will bring that to you probably next month.
Okay, sounds good.
Any questions?
Not for me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay, you too. Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, I guess with that said, then we'll move along to our last agenda item of the day, and that's Mr. Ellerman from Public Works.
Morning.
Morning.
John Ellerman, Public Works Director. This morning I have a request to fill a vacant position, Administrative Clerk 2, our utilities position. She's the one that takes care of our billing and our accounts receivable and for all our benefit districts, the water and sewers. That's it's a position I was glad to see we had when I came to help organize and control and run all that, and somebody stole her from me, so.
I don't know who would do a thing like that.
I'm asking.
Well, actually, if you want to be technical about that, you can go back to Barry
Barry's
and
the
blame
one
him
that
because that's
started the
where it
sequence,
started.
Well, and actually, the Public Works stole her from me first because she was about to accept the job from me when their job came open. So
So we're gonna play this game of back and forth.
Either way, he got a good one and I'm losing one and I need to replace her, so.
I was going to take a moment to clarify one thing on these particular discussions. We did put into place last year, was it by resolution that when we have open positions like this, that they're brought to us so that we have a chance to openly discuss them. And, you know, whether it's a new position or a current position that's already budgeted, we felt it necessary at that point in time, particularly with the onset of COVID, to have those explanations. So that's just something to keep in mind. Moving forward. That's actually a policy I'd like to keep in place, but just so we can have these dialogues. Most of the time, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, in this case, it's pretty obvious that that's a position that's needed. And you know, outside of that, if there was a discussion or one commissioner had concerns about a particular position, it gives us the opportunity to discuss it. So, from my perspective, this one is very much so a necessary position given what it does.
Well, I had a question then, because one of their primary thing is the billings, whatever, for the sewer and water districts. Do those sewer and water districts pay us for that, or is that our? 'Cause I know they're paid, they've got their own
Yeah. Yes,
specials.
they'll reimburse her for our administration.
They pay for the administration fees too? Oh, okay.
And it's probably from this perspective on this one, it's easier to probably have Public Works rather than Rich's office do that because Public
yeah.
Works
Because they know what's.
works specifically with those entities.
So they
So,
collect it and do the paperwork on it. We're the ones that pay the bills.
Mhm.
Just pay the bills,
Right.
so.
And she does a lot of, this position will have a lot of contact with customers as they call them, have issues one way, whether with billing or with the system problems, and they would get into me to be able to figure out who to go fix it or take care of that.
It's the customer service aspect plus the coding of the bills for the respective to be sure the correct benefit district is paying those bills, and then they send that paperwork to our office, and we're the ones that generate the checks. So, be sure it's paid.
No, it's definitely needed.
okay, well, much like everything, it'll take a motion and a second, please.
Okay, I'll move to approve the filling of the Public Works Administrative Clerk to Utilities position.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm not seeing any further discussion probably at this time, so all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
And I still need to sign that too, right, Rich?
Excuse me?
I need to sign that yet too, or did I sign that one already?
You signed it.
Okay.
I thought you had signed it. It should have.
Couldn't remember if I had, she brought it, I rushed it, so. Second item on my list here was just an FYI, I guess, to keep, as I was just coming on.
Yeah.
Leon, or my predecessor, was working with Associated Insulation to see how much or what asbestos was in that old church that we purchased. And as like we did that, we received a report, and the estimate to remove any of that asbestos or all of that was a little over $65,000. This is more just for your information for when those discussions on what
What to do with
when
it, yeah.
to do with that building that comes up.
Well, the good news is that's a lot less than what we all originally estimated, so that's good. In terms of what to do with the building at this particular point in time, I still think we're gonna have to have a little bit more in-depth and robust conversation about that before we get to the point. So,
Where did they find it?
Yeah. Is there an itemization on it or?
There was, I skimmed through it real quick after I had got it. There's some in the ceiling tiles, in the various places in the church. I think some of it was, I should have read it a little bit or got a little bit more familiar with it before I came. So I thought I'd seen somewhere where they showed what areas had it.
Well, I'd probably make then the recommendation of once you've had the chance to fully go through that, to get that over and get it in one of our packets so that we can review it too.
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious.
I
How far,
yeah.
whether it's in one spot or whether it's through the whole,
I think it's throughout ceiling tiles. and
If it's
floor
ceiling tiles,
What about insulation?
and Rich, probably what might be a good idea too is I don't think the other two commissioners have had the chance to walk through there, see what we have. I don't need to at this point, but you may schedule something with them separately so they get an opportunity to walk through and.
Yeah, Gary and I can do that because I haven't been through it myself.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I said, I've already been through it. I don't need to be part of that necessarily, but it would be a good idea to see
Yeah.
and put everything together on that because that's an obvious discussion that's going to come up here shortly and you need to have as much information about it as you possibly can. So,
Just so you know, I did provide the new commissioners prior to them coming on, all the plans
Okay.
For everything and studies, including the study of that facility. And at least I think with the commissioners attended with the previous two commissioners, and I think John at one point in time were in favor demolishing the building, but at what point in time do you do that? And they knew that no matter what you do at that building, you have to get an asbestos evaluated. And I only think it cost a couple $1,000 to get the.
I think Leon said it was like $1,250 or
Yeah.
We
something.
pay
It
like
was
1,800.
Yeah, I thought it was just under 2,000 to get the evaluation.
Just to
done.
find out what's
And so
there.
We knew
Yeah.
no matter what you do at the building, you have to have it done at some time, and everyone was guessing what that figure might be. So now we know, and then on top of that, if you do demolish it, you have that cost as well.
Mhm.
So it was just to get a better, more firm idea on what those figures might be.
We thought it could be as high as maybe even $500,000 at one point in time. We just didn't know. So
Yeah, those can vary greatly depending on what they find, where it is,
And
how easy
I-
it is to come off.
mhm.
I do know from talking with Associated Insulation that they had previously done some removal before,
No.
prior to us owning it. So I knew some of it had been taken care of.
Okay, well, that's good information to know. I said when we get a full report over at some point in time, will give us all a chance to review that.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. If you could get that on the agenda sometime, that full report, present to them, we're gonna review it, commissioners, on that
Okay.
asbestos.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further at this time? I don't have anything myself. I did forward that email over to you
Yep. I
in that
saw
afternoon meeting.
Yep. I'll give them that.
That's really all I have.
I don't have anything.
All right. Okay, well, I'll need at this point in time is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. You have a great weekend, everyone.
You
Be a
too.
little bit warmer next few days.
Mhm. Do we need to stop the live stream?
Thank you, ma'am.